Okay, let's get into this. I think we've all seen it, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a familiar story.
You see that leader who just explodes onto the scene. I mean, they're full of talent, charisma. They have this huge momentum,
And then just a few years later, it's over.
a spectacular crash and burn. So today we're doing a deep dive into a genuinely countercultural blueprint for what makes for enduring influence. We're looking at the core requirements for leadership readiness, and we're drawing it all from Chris R. Velazquez's work, Prepared in Secret Before the Platform.
And this is such a critical deep dive because the sources, they immediately expose this profound crisis that's really damaging leadership today.
Right.
It's the widening gap between public effectiveness,
Mm-hmm.
the things we can measure like gifting or audience size, and private formation.
The character stuff,
Yeah.
the obedience.
Exactly, the things nobody sees.
And that's the central tension, isn't it? Our culture basically says if you have a platform, you must be ready to lead. But these sources ask a really subversive question.
What does genuine, sustainable preparation actually look like?
Right. So our mission today is to unpack this foundational idea that real spiritual influence isn't forged in public performance, but in what the author calls hidden faithfulness.
I mean, that's it. The crisis this work addresses is that this gap produces these gifted yet unformed leaders. They're people who are incredibly talented, incredibly driven, but their inner life just can't sustain the outward demands.
They're vulnerable.
Extremely vulnerable to burnout, to compromise, and, well, eventual collapse. So the question we're really digging into is a simple one, but it's profound. What does God require before he entrusts enduring influence?
Okay, let's unpack that modern assumption first, because it feels so deeply ingrained in our whole culture, and maybe especially in ministry cultures.
Yeah.
What does the source material say is the flawed logic we're all working with?
The sources are really clear on this. We tend to think readiness is the same as 4 external factors. First is gifting. Can you communicate well? Can you organize people?
We're raw talent.
Your raw talent. Second, education. Do you have the credentials? Third is opportunity. Are doors opening for you? Is there a demand?
And the last one, momentum. Things are growing fast, expanding.
Right. And the unspoken logic behind it all is dangerously simple. If you can gather attention, you must be ready to lead.
If you can do the work, you must be ready for the responsibility.
But wait, efficiency is a good thing, isn't it? If someone is super gifted and they can rally people, shouldn't we, use them right away? There's a real pressure to move fast.
That pressure is very real, I agree. But the source material gives us this strong biblical corrective. It says, capacity and readiness are not the same thing.
Okay, break that down. Capacity versus readiness.
Think of it like a building. Capacity is the size of the building, how many people it can hold.
Mm-hmm.
But character, that's the foundation. That's the load-bearing material. The Apostle Paul warns that knowledge puffs up, but love builds up.
So you can have this huge capacity, amazing gifts, tons of knowledge, but if the character isn't there.
The whole structure is unstable. The entire thing is at risk. So charisma without character is. It's like building a skyscraper out of balsa wood. It looks impressive for a minute.
Precisely. It looks great until the first storm hits. That instability is what destabilizes ministry. It inflates the ego, it makes the leader brittle under pressure, which is, the exact opposite of the servant heart God is trying to form.
And that weakness, it leads to tragic, real-world consequences. This isn't just theory. If the platform is a magnifying glass, what are the specific dangers the sources warn about when we try to take shortcuts?
Yeah, this is where it gets really practical. The sources identify 3 very familiar collapses. First, there's burnout. This happens when all the activity, all the visible stuff, it just replaces your intimacy with God.
You're running on fumes.
You're mistaking busyness for spiritual vitality. And you're essentially hollowing yourself out by constantly giving from a source that isn't being refilled.
I think we've all felt that at some point.
We have. Second, we see compromise. When the pressure mounts, all those unchecked desires, the unaddressed wounds, they start to surface. If your validation isn't secure in God, you start looking for it somewhere else.
In affirmation, control, maybe something worse.
Often something worse. And the third, which is maybe the most devastating, is collapse. This is where those unhealed wounds just fracture completely under the weight of it all.
Because that pressure, that responsibility, it doesn't just test your character, it amplifies everything that's already broken inside.
The spotlight removes any safe place to hide. And the critical takeaway here, it's repeated throughout the work, is that public ministry doesn't create character, It just exposes what private formation has already produced.
Hmm.
The platform only amplifies what is already there.
Wow. So the solution isn't a bigger platform.
No, the solution is a stronger, invisible foundation beneath it.
So if that's the tragedy of moving too fast, what's the divine blueprint? You mentioned strengthening the foundation. That seems to lead right into this core theological idea in the sources. God works inwardly before he works visibly. So this idea hiddenness, it's not some unfortunate delay we have to suffer through. It's a theological necessity.
It is absolutely necessary. Look, God is never in a hurry to promote someone. His ultimate concern is substance, not speed, and the pattern is just relentless across all the biblical stories. Formation has to come before function.
And the examples are staggering. When you look at the time spent in preparation versus the time spent in public, it's not even close.
Not at all. I mean, consider the main one. Jesus, the Son of God. 30 hidden years for just 3 years of public ministry.
That ratio is incredible.
Think about that. He didn't bypass ordinary obedience just because he was divine. He validated the process. Luke tells us the only thing we know about that time is that he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. The authority that later stunned people, it flowed from decades of a life just deeply aligned with the Father.
And what about Moses? He had the best education, he was capable, and he tried to deliver Israel with his own strength.
Right, in Exodus 2, he thought his talent was enough, and he was so wrong.
The cost of that mistake.
40 years. 40 years in the wilderness as a shepherd. 4 decades to dismantle his self-reliance, his impulse, his whole Egyptian identity. He had to learn dependence and humility in total obscurity before God could trust him to go confront Pharaoh.
I can't even imagine that test of the ego. Or, think about David. He's anointed king in secret. And then he goes right back to the fields. Then he's hunted, hiding in caves for years.
And the sources highlight that those years, which David must have thought were just wasted time,
Of course.
they were essential. That was the school where he learned to trust God, where he learned to lead this small band of misfits, where he learned to worship while being persecuted. The promise wasn't destroyed in the darkness of the caves. It was matured there.
And it's the same with Joseph. His dreams were, maybe a little arrogant at first. They didn't come true on his timeline.
Not at all. They were matured in the darkness of betrayal, slavery, and prison. Those dark places were essential processing plants. And this really gets to the heart of it, the theology of hiddenness. Why does God choose this long, often painful path? It just seems so inefficient.
Right. It seems like time we could be using to build the kingdom,
But it is efficient, just in a spiritual sense. The secret place, which Jesus talks about, that's the crucible where your motives get purified. When there's no audience, you have to ask, why am I doing this? For God's approval? Or for human validation?
It strips everything else away.
It reorders your desires. It secures your identity in God alone, not in public opinion or the latest metric. Obscurity forces a dependence on God that you just can't get any other way.
This whole idea forces us to completely redefine what readiness even means. It shifts the focus away from the external stuff, from the doing, to the internal reality of becoming. The Sophists talk about readiness as spiritual weight.
That is the crucial shift. It's a quiet strength that you cultivate over time. The source material argues that true authority flows from alignment, not from aspiration.
Alignment, not aspiration. Say more about that.
Well, it's about whether a person can actually bear the weight of responsibility and visibility without being crushed or distorted by it. Trustworthiness, not talent, becomes the ultimate measure of readiness.
The sources have that great comparison, which I think makes it so clear. Ambition asks, how can I make an impact?
But alignment asks, how can I remain faithful?
That's the whole difference right there.
It's the difference between self-generated drive and Christ-centered obedience. And Jesus is the perfect model for this. He says, I seek not my own will, but the will of him who sent me. His authority was rooted in total obedience, not in his own ambition. Readiness, then, isn't measured by your resume. It's measured by the spiritual weight you've built up.
So if alignment is the goal, what is this hidden curriculum, as the sources call it? What are the specific qualities being formed in secret that give you that kind of endurance?
There are 3 non-negotiables. First is character before competence. Your competence might get you the platform, but it's your character that determines how long you stay there and whether you survive it.
So integrity, humility, the stuff you learn when no one is watching.
Exactly. The secret place reveals if your obedience is real or if it's just for show.
And if that obedience isn't rewarded right away, or even noticed by anyone but God, that requires something really resilient inside you.
Which is the second quality, resilient obedience. It's learning to obey when you're in the dark, in the cold cave, feeling completely forgotten. This is what prepares you to handle disappointment, delay, and betrayal without giving up. It means doing the small, unseen tasks with the same seriousness as the big, celebrated ones.
That seems like the very definition of faithfulness.
It is. And that foundation leads directly to the third quality, endurance before expansion. Jesus taught this. Faithfulness in the small, unseen things is the test before you're trusted with bigger things.
Faithful in little, entrusted with much.
Yes, Luke 16:10. And the much isn't a reward for your ambition. It's a responsibility given only to those who've proven they're trustworthy, that they can handle the small stuff without losing their soul.
So trustworthiness is the ultimate goal, and it's formed entirely in the quiet.
Precisely. It's formed when that kind of obedience becomes second nature, when faithfulness is just what you do, with or without spectators. Readiness is really about having an identity so anchored in being beloved by God that you don't need constant validation from people. When that's secure, the authority that comes with it rests lightly on you and you can endure for the long haul. So, to synthesize this whole deep dive, I think the recovery of Christ's way of readiness, prioritizing this hidden faithfulness and deep inner formation, it's a theological and a pastoral necessity.
It sounds like it frees you.
It absolutely does. It frees leaders, and really all of us, from the tyranny of hurry, from that constant, relentless pressure to produce visible results right now.
Yeah, the sources don't present this as a critique to make us feel bad, but more like an invitation to a deeper and more sustainable life. The call isn't to be passive, but to actually pause, look at our ambitions honestly, and let God shape the kind of life that can carry influence without breaking.
Those hidden years are not wasted years.
No, they're sacred training grounds. They produce that spiritual weight we were talking about.
They're the fertile soil where fruit that lasts actually grows.
And as we close this deep dive, the source material leaves us with a really provocative thought to chew on. It suggests that maybe the most urgent task for the church today isn't resisting the world's external opposition, but resisting its internal impatience. So if that's true for you right now, and if you're feeling that pressure of invisibility, what specific season of hidden faithfulness are you being invited to embrace? That is something worth pondering long after the platform fades.